Hello everyone and welcome back to Coach Craig Sports. Today is going to be a little bit different video. Going to be going over the top 10 running backs in the 2021 NFL draft class. So these are going to be how I grade them out as prospects, not necessarily how they're going to be for fantasy overall. So it's more of a prospect video. I'll talk a little bit about fantasy, but not too much in general. I'm just going to go through each guy, the pros and cons of each one, kind of like I did with the quarterback position. If you guys haven't already checked out that video, definitely would recommend it. Definitely very interesting going over the pros and cons of my top 10 quarterbacks for this year's class as well. But as far as the running backs go, we're going to start off with number 1, and that's Najee Harris out of Alabama. He's probably going to be the consensus number 1 overall. There's some people that will have Travis Etienne up there. There's some people that will have Javonte Williams up there. But for me, it's going to be Najee Harris. Like I already said, he's out of Alabama. He is 23 years old, so we'll start off with the cons because there's fewer of them. So the cons is he's an old prospect because he's 23 years old. You like to see guys that are 21, 22 coming out, but you know, with him, it's not really something that I'm too concerned about. If you watch him play, he's an all-around running back. The other thing that would be a con probably is the long speed. He's not going to have the greatest long speed in the world, but if he gets by you, he's still not going to get caught by other guys either. So it's not too major concern there. Some people will say pass protection, but everything I see on tape is average to above average. So I'm not really too concerned about there. I think he's definitely something he's going to be able to do at the NFL level as well. But here is what Najee Harris does well. He has very good strength. Obviously, he's a bigger back. He's got good vision. He's able to find holes very easily. He's a pretty patient runner overall as well, so that definitely helps with some of that vision. He has tremendous balance, especially contact balance. So he's not a guy that's just going to go down real easy. And then last but not least, he is a very good receiver out of the backfield. He's able to run a full route tree, which a lot of running backs aren't able to do. And then he's got good hands as well. So he is your all-around running back. You know, he's kind of like a Marshawn Lynch that's able to catch better, but probably not quite as physical as a Marshawn Lynch was, if that makes sense. Then we'll go down to number 2. That's Travis Etienne. He is a guy that could have came out last year, been a top 5 running back in last year's class, went back to school, really worked on his hands, his route running, and all-around receiving game. He is 22 years old, so a true 4-year senior. I'm going to start off with the pros for Travis Etienne. He's got very, very good long speed. He's got tremendous initial burst. Like I said, he went back to school, improved his hands, improved his overall ability as a receiver, and it really showed. And that's something that's going to make him a lot more valuable at the next level. The cons, obviously, the vision can be hit or miss at times. Not really too concerned about it, though. And then his ability to run between the tackles. It's not the best, but, I mean, you can get away with it. He might not be a guy that's a full, 3-down workhorse running back like that. But he's going to be a guy that could have a ceiling of like an Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara, somebody like that. He might have a little bit better long speed than Alvin Kamara, but he doesn't have the quick shiftness that Alvin Kamara does that really makes him stand out. So probably think more like an Aaron Jones, honestly. Definitely a guy that's going to be a good running back for years to come at the NFL level. Then the last of the big 3 is Javonte Williams, and I know there's a lot of people that really like him. He's a bigger physical back. He's got a little bit of quickness to him as well, but we're going to get into him a little bit more. He's the running back out of North Carolina, obviously. He's actually 20 years old. He'll be 21 before the season starts, so that makes him essentially the youngest running back in this year's class. So that's something that's very appealing. He did split workload at North Carolina as well with Michael Carter, who is also on this list. So he doesn't have quite as much, mileage on his body. Some NFL teams might like that. So for the pros, I do have that he's very smooth. It's just really clean the way he runs. He has good vision, so that's another very good trait for him. He's a very patient runner too. He's got good balance, kind of like we talked about with Najee Harris. He has that strength. He has that play strength. He's a bigger back. He's physical. Like, he broke a tackle on 48% of the runs that he had last year, which is honestly insane because nobody else has done that. And that's something that's really valuable at the NFL level. But there are some concerns with it as well. Is that hard running style going to hold up over a full season? Is it going to hold up over 3 full seasons? And we'll just have to see, honestly. For the cons for me, for Javonte Williams, is obviously his long speed. He's not going to run away from guys. He gets to the edge rather quickly, and that's something that you do look for. But if you run down the sideline, he's going to get caught pretty much every time. Then the last one for me is his ability in the receiving game and in pass protection. Most people say it's pretty good. I think it's all right. I don't think he's honestly going to be a guy that's a true 3-down running back at the NFL level. I think he's going to get into a situation where there's another guy that takes the 3rd down work away from him, kind of like what happened with Josh Jacobs. Like, he's a okay enough receiver to do it, but if there's somebody else that's more specialized in that skill set, it's going to take away from him. So I would not be surprised if that happens at the NFL level. But overall, another very good prospect, another guy that's going to have some success at the NFL level, but it might end up being more like that type of Josh Jacobs career that we've seen. So maybe when you're looking at it from a fantasy aspect, a guy that's going to get a good amount of carries, but might be a little bit more touchdown dependent, especially in PPR leagues. Then we move to number 4, and that's Michael Carter, his teammate out of North Carolina as well. He's a 4-year senior. He is 21. He's going to be 22 by the start of the NFL season. Michael Carter, a little bit smaller back, about 5'8", 201 pounds. So there is a little bit of size concerns there. Obviously, we were looking to see if he came in over that 200 weight for his pro day. He also did at the Senior Bowl too. So it's not like it was just one day. So that's really nice to see that it was multiple days. But another thing, like I said, with Javonte Williams, Michael Carter also has that smoothness to the way he runs. He has very good lateral movement, so side-to-side movement. He is very good at setting up defenders, so he'll put his foot in the ground, make the defender think he's going one way, and then he's going to come back the other way. So he's really good at that. He has very good hands out of the backfield. He's going to be a comparable receiver for a running back at the NFL level. You're looking at a guy who could be kind of like that Austin Eckler type of role, kind of a similar size, involved in the receiving game. He's never going to be quite that workhorse back at the NFL level. So the cons for Michael Carter, obviously that size is a little bit of a concern. How's he going to hold up at the NFL level? And then there's been a couple questions about pass protection as well. Not the biggest guy, but he does put a lot of effort into it as well, so I don't think it's a major concern. Then we move down to number 5, and that's Chuba Hubbard, coming from up north, the Canadian Chuba Hubbard. Obviously, as you see on the graphic below, I'm part of the True North Fantasy Football, so us over here at that, we do love him because he's a Canadian, even though I'm not a true Canadian. I live in Wisconsin, so I'm kind of adopted to that team, but still, I am a big fan of Chuba Hubbard as well. He had a quite interesting 2020 season, so they changed some schemes, had the kind of thing with Mike Gundy, the head coach, and then he hurt his ankle. And nobody's really factoring in that ankle injury to why he wasn't as successful this season. He was a guy that really played through it. It was a struggle, but going back to 2019, you look at 2019, you look at some of the 2020 tape, you see a lot of good there. So he has great initial burst. He has good long speed. He's obviously a big-time track star in Canada as well. He's got decent vision. Not the best, not the worst. It's kind of hit or miss, kind of like when we go back to Travis Etienne. He has soft hands out of the backfield. He's not the most accomplished route runner per se, but if you get the ball to him in space, if you get it to him on a screen, he has the ability to take it to the house on any single play. Then the cons for Chuba, it's going to be ball security. He does have a tendency to put the ball on the ground. We've seen other guys get better in this over time, though, too. Kind of, you think of Tiki Barber, his early on career, changed the way he gripped the ball, and it got better. Then you also have that injury concern with the ankle this year. And then last but not least, there are some concerns about pass protection. He's not the best in that area, but I think it's something that he can also get better at as well. So overall, I think Chuba Hubbard is a very interesting back in this year's class. I think that if he ends up in the right scheme, he's going to be a very good running back at the NFL level. Maybe he ends up with the Jets with that Shanahan scheme, and then he's the next Raheem Mostert, a guy that can really break off a big play at any time, and is also going to be a decent running back at the same time as well. Then we get down to number 6, and that's a guy that a lot of people do like a lot this year, and that's Kenneth Gainwell out of Memphis. He is a redshirt sophomore, and he did not play in the 2020 season. He was a COVID opt-out. A couple different members of his family actually died from COVID, so obviously prayers go out to him and his family there. So it does make a lot of sense why he didn't play this year. He's actually 22, which is actually pretty old for a redshirt sophomore. So you think about redshirt sophomore, you think, oh, he's like 21. So now he's 22, so he's a little bit older prospect than you think. Really only had 1 year under his belt. Is actually a converted quarterback from high school, so not the most experienced at the running back position, but he does have a lot of good things about him as well. So we're going to start off with the good things for him, and that's obviously he has a great initial burst. He's got pretty good speed overall, and then his receiving work. He is a very accomplished route runner and has pretty good hands as well. Things that are not quite as good about him, at least when you go back to 2019, didn't play with a lot of strength. Obviously, since he was a smaller back, he has kind of bulked up since then. I believe he did put up 20 reps on the bench press as well for his pro day, so maybe that's not quite as much of a concern as you would think otherwise. Not really a guy that's going to be able to run in between the tackles. We talk about 2019 when he was there. They did have Patrick Taylor as well, who was that big bruiser running back who was really known for doing that type of stuff. So there's not a lot of tape out there on him running between the tackles, but it wasn't something he really excelled at either. Then a couple other things that I do have down. His vision was kind of hit or miss. Sometimes it was really good. Sometimes it was really not so good. So sometimes that gets better at the NFL level. Sometimes it doesn't. Just a minor concern there. And then pass protection. He is not a guy that's going to be able to pass protect, or he wasn't, at least in 2019. Smaller back, really just went for people's legs, chipping blocks and stuff, just trying to chip guys and stuff like that when he went out on a route. Probably not going to be a guy that does that very well at the NFL level, but with him, you're looking for more like a playmaker. So he's going to be a running back that you're going to line up in the slot some, line up in the backfield, kind of a change of pace running back, never going to be a true workhorse running back. Then we get down to number 7, and that's Kylin Hill. And you kind of see a theme with some of these guys here. You're not really getting the workhorse running back outside of the top 3. Kylin Hill out of Mississippi State, he's actually a redshirt senior. So he's 22 right now. He's going to be 23 by the start of the season. Very interesting back. He came back his senior year to prove that, he could really be used out of the backfield. Played like a couple games. Things weren't going quite the way they probably should have. So then he just opted out after like 3-4 games. But he definitely has some good flashes on tape. He is a very interesting guy. He has pretty good short area quickness. He's got very, very good hands out of the backfield. Able to pass protect. He's a very smart player. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be an asset as a third down running back. The question is really with him is, what is his ceiling? Because he could be a guy who's just a James White. You kind of use on passing down, stuff like that. Or, if his vision gets a little bit better, if he gets a little bit stronger, he could end up being a very good running back, a steal in this year's draft class. But the cons, obviously, like I said, for him, vision. Some people say he's not quite a natural runner. Not too concerned about that, but you just watch some of the movements and the way he runs. It's not typical, but hey, if it works, it works. And then the last thing I have down is a little bit of injury concerns with him as well. I watched quite a few Mississippi State games this year too, and he was kind of in and out of the lineup here and there, so kind of getting banged up, but he never really got hurt, but maybe a little bit of durability concerns and holding up for the course of a long season. Then at number 8, I got Jarret Patterson out of Buffalo. He is 21 years old, dominated the MAC competition for 3 years. We thought he was 5'9", like 185, 190 pounds. Going into his pro day, shows up, he's actually 5'6", 195 pounds. So he's not a big running back by any means. I'd love to see him get over that 200-pound mark. But we'll talk about the good things with him, and that's going to be, he does have toughness, even though he's a smaller back. He has good vision as well. He is very shifty. If you watch him on tape, his feet are always moving. He's always looking for that little hole, that little crease to get through. And I comp his running style to Le'Veon Bell. Very patient guy, always looking for the hole. Feet are always moving. Obviously, he's not the same size as Le'Veon Bell. Obviously, he's not anywhere near as good as Le'Veon Bell in the passing game. But the cons, obviously, size is a big one. 5'6", 195 pounds. It's not a very big running back. There's not a lot of guys that have succeeded at that. And then we talk about everything else. Just kind of a 2-down running back for a guy that's as small as he is, which you really don't see very often at the NFL level. Like I said there, he has very limited receiving work in college. Didn't even receive a target in 2020. So was that part of the Buffalo system, or was that just something that he's not very good at? You can always get better at it, but it's still a major concern. And then last but not least, he does not have that great long speed. It was good enough at the MAC competition, but you get to the NFL level and he's going to get caught on some of these longer runs as well. But overall, a guy that I do like a lot. He's a very interesting prospect when you talk about being a small, compact guy, has really good vision, has really good feet, and he's just really a guy that's going to depend on what system he ends up in. I think there's some systems in the NFL that he could really thrive in, but he's never going to be that workhorse running back. He's probably going to be a change of pace guy, a guy that fills in when the starter gets hurt. Then we move down to number 9, and that's Khalil Herbert out of Virginia Tech. He's kind of got an interesting story as well. So he's 23 years old, redshirt senior. He started off his career at Kansas, played there some with Puka Williams. Puka Williams kind of got more of the spotlight. Khalil Herbert went to Virginia Tech and really balled out. So you like to see when you transition from one place to the next that you do better there. So obviously that's a good thing for him. I'll talk about the other things that he does do well. He does have good vision, so that's something that's really good. He is a very shifty running back. He's pretty quick. I wouldn't say he's got like elite long speed or anything like that, but he's got good quickness. He's got good speed. Some people will say he didn't do that much in the receiving game at Virginia Tech, but he did show very good flashes of it. And then he has been used as a kick returner in the past, so we'll see if that's something that translates over to the NFL level. The cons for him, running inside wasn't really the best for him, and then kind of his play strength. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad. Overall, he's a very interesting prospect to me, and it's just that small sample size. Plus, he's an older back at 23 years old. I know a lot of people are probably not going to like this name, but kind of reminds me a little bit of Keyshawn Vaughn last year. I think I like Herbert a little bit better, but Keyshawn Vaughn was an awful prospect. He kind of got into a good situation that turned up being bad. Like I said, I still kind of like Khalil Herbert a little bit better than Keyshawn Vaughn anyways. Then we get down to number 10. That's Jermar Jefferson. And for me, it doesn't really mean much that he's number 10. It means more that this running back class isn't quite as strong, but he kind of makes the cut regardless. Jermar Jefferson, obviously, he had a strong freshman campaign, got hurt his sophomore season. Artavius Pierce came in, kind of picked up where he left off. Artavius Pierce ends up going to the NFL as an undrafted free agent to the Bears. So we'll talk a little bit more about Jefferson now. He is 21 years old, actually turned 21 a couple days ago. The things that are good with Jefferson are going to be his initial burst. He does have soft hands, not really accomplished route runner or anything like that, but you throw him a little swing pass, a little screen, he's able to do a little bit with it. Then one of the kind of concerns with me too is he's kind of a home run hitter. A lot of his productions came on longer runs. In college, he looked like he had better, on tape it looks like he has good long speed. But you look at the 40-yard dash, he ran like 4.55, so it's not really quite there when you look at it from that sense. So how is that going to translate to the NFL level? One of the concerns with me is really his vision. I don't think it's that good. Some people do, but you just watch it. He misses holes here. He runs in the back of the guard here. It's just not something that really sticks out to me. He's a little bit of scheme dependent for me. He's kind of like an average running back, but at 10, you could do worse, but you could also do better as well. So a guy that's, if he lands in the right scheme at the NFL, I think he could have a little bit of success kind of filling in for that starting running back. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that's a full-time starter or like a real part of a committee. So like I said, the fact that he's number 10 kind of says a little bit more about this class than him overall. Those are the top 10 running backs that I do have for the 2021 NFL draft class. You guys are probably like, well, where's Trey Sermon and where's Ramondre Stevenson? I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about those guys. I'll start off with Trey Sermon, Ohio State, obviously. To me, he's just getting overhyped because he had, 2 big games when the national spotlight was on him. Looked okay at Oklahoma, but he's an average back to me. He's got okay speed. Doesn't really stand out in any area. I think he's decent in the receiving game, and that might be his niche at the NFL level, but he's a guy that has a pretty extensive injury history as well. Got hurt in the national championship game. He's a guy, when I watch him run, he just thinks he's faster than he actually is. He thinks he can get to the corner and he gets caught. And at the NFL level, that's going to happen more often than not. So not a guy that really gets me excited. I think he could have some success if he ends up in a zone blocking scheme at the NFL level. I think a spot that would actually be pretty interesting for him would be Denver, kind of behind Melvin Gordon, playing a little bit of pass catching role. Maybe he has some success there, but not really a guy that I get too excited about. And I believe he's already 22, 23, so he's a little bit of an older prospect as well. And then last but not least, we got Ramondre Stevenson, bigger back. His playing weight was 240, 250 during the season, but shows up to Senior Bowls of 230, shows up about the same weight as pro day. 40 time wasn't very good. The shuttles were actually good, though. He has good agility for a bigger back. kind of runs like DeMarco Murray, but he's bigger than DeMarco Murray, if that makes sense. And I hate making the comparison like that too. You know, both of them went to Oklahoma, but he doesn't really run like a bigger back. Not really a physical runner, and that's kind of a concern to me. Really had 1 year of production, and a lot of it came against some of the worst defenses that he played against, so that's a little bit of a concern as well. Had that positive drug test, so I don't know exactly if that was for actual drugs or PEDs or what it was, but I'm not really sure how NFL teams are going to view him in that regard. He does have good hands out of the backfield, so he's an interesting prospect. I'll give you guys that, but not really somebody that stands out to me, not somebody that translates completely well to the NFL level. I think NFL teams are actually going to have a hard time choosing between him and Stevie Scott out of Indiana. They're both about the same size. Stevie Scott's a little bit more physical of a runner. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, show good pass protection traits as well. So I think if you're looking for that bigger physical back, I think most teams are going to go with Stevie Scott because he has the traits that you look for in a back that size. Ramondre Stevenson doesn't quite have that. He has, like I said, he's a very interesting prospect, but it's really hard to see how he translates to the NFL game. But that's pretty much all I have for today. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed this. If you guys have a top 10 running back list of your own for the 2021 NFL draft, please share it below. Definitely interested to see how you rank the top 10 running backs in this NFL draft class. If you guys have somebody that's in your top 10 that's not in my top 10, be sure to let me know as well. If you have any comments, questions, concerns about any running backs in this year's class, be sure to leave them down in the comments below as well. I've watched tape on every single running back in this year's class that could possibly be drafted, essentially. So I don't want to toot my own horn and say I'm an expert, but I have a lot of experience from watching all these different guys as well. With that being said, that's pretty much all I have for today's video. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed. As always, if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Definitely helps build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, and that's truly one for you, the viewers. If you guys aren't familiar with my channel, I do a lot of DFS videos as well, whether it's NBA or NFL, trying to help you guys out with that, trying to help you guys out with your fantasy football teams, covering all the different draft coverage as we head into the NFL draft. I'll be doing my wide receiver and my tight end top 10 list as well in the coming days. So definitely be sure to be looking out for those ones as well. But once again, thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It definitely means a lot to me, and I hope each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.